Ki khubor ka Batesi TV ka umdi basnyam bat penjaslian. Rupa Premium Meghalaya.
Government of India takes time to agree for the demand of ILP. I cannot promise on behalf of the Government of India. That's why I did not promise. I never promised ILP. Did I promise ILP? But we agreed to unanimously adopt a resolution in the Assembly during the time when the current government, the present dispensation, promised us that they can do it. They promised us that they will be able to do it, so we agreed to vote. But I did not promise during my time because I know I cannot convince Government of India at that point of time. I don't know whether now I can convince or not if I have to represent the government.
Menteri Rambak Barim Gejala Wadai Mentau Noi Lam Kaliang Persyap Dr. Mukul Sangma Ula Ong Ba Borok Skata Hakapor Ulang Menteri Rambak Kular Ban ILP Bar Ula Bu Jingkeliru Dakabo Ong Hato Pijulap Bangah Kular ILP Ula Ong Ba Usngotho Ba Sarkar India Kan ILP Kom Tau Lawan Ra Daka MRSSA Ban Penkup Bor Gidor Basnong Bakin Pej Ya Kejingwan Kibrio Kibanabar Ula Keno Bangani Ka Sarkar Pemerintah Ka Lam Bakala Ya Ka Ying Dorbar Thau Andru Bat Ikipat Nong Syong Ka Meghalaya Daka Kular Ban Penteri Kam Ya Ka ILP Klem Lapat Ban Penkongu Ya Ka Sarkar India Bat Kani Ka Pau Thok Ban Syikipat Ba.
Why the government did not know how to fight back and protect this? It is only because of this today this question of whatever to some extent, now what was the intent? Intent of MRSSA was that, okay, when we were all looking at ILP is up to Government of India to give. Now I do not represent Government of India. At that point of time when we were running the government, we did not represent Government of India. So Government of India we cannot take for granted. We cannot take the parliament for granted. You see, we have to have understanding about how our democracy operates. You cannot even take the assembly for granted, how the legislature will be there. Therefore, only when one particular issue is brought before the August House, how the honorable elected members in the August House, articulate, debate, discuss, and then somehow from the perspective of on people's behalf, how they really agree or disagree on various points which are factored in any proposed legislation. Therefore, you cannot take assembly, the state legislature for granted in advance, nor you can take parliament for granted. How the parliament will decide, we cannot always, somehow predict, and it is not also inconsistent with our somehow given core values of our democracy. Therefore, having known that if Government of India takes time to agree for the demand of ILP, I cannot promise on behalf of the Government of India. That's why I did not promise. I never promised ILP. Did I promise ILP? But we agreed to unanimously adopt a resolution in the Assembly during the time when the current government, the present dispensation, promised us that they can do it. They promised us that they will be able to do it, so we agreed to vote. But I did not promise during my time because I know I cannot convince Government of India at that point of time. I don't know whether now I can convince or not if I have to represent the government. But at that point of time, I did my due diligence, I did my homework, I knew that I can't convince the Government of India, so why will I fool my people? Mukul Sama cannot give false hope to the people of the state. And that is my brand. So therefore, I did not lie to the people. But the government of the day told everybody, saying that you just adopt this resolution, it is done. Why will we not vote for this? If they have been able to convince the Government of India. But if they have not been able to convince the Government of India, that means they have lied before the House. They have lied before the House. That means this amounts to misleading the House. Yes. We presumed and assumed that maybe, okay, they must have really discussed, taken the union government on board. That's why they are giving that kind of, that with authority, that kind of your assurance. What has happened to that assurance? After the resolution was adopted, did not they come to the Central Library, met the civil society organizations who were waiting for the House to take a resolution? Didn't they come and tell them? I think they are all available still in your photographs, in your photo gallery. So that was a lie. So if people of the state has seen the biggest lie, How many lies you need to be, imposed upon? So that's why when I know that I cannot convince during my time to somehow invoke the provision of ILP in respect of Meghalaya, so we came up with this alternative. A bird in hand is worthier than the two birds in the bush. So what we could do, we have done. But I am telling you, if we very meticulously design the implementation of the provision and mandate of the MRSSA to a great extent, we will be able to ensure that people cannot just come and stay wherever they like. At least the purpose for which they are coming, the background, the credentials, the intent, everything will be compiled, based on which the neighborhood, the traditional institutions will agree or disagree to allow them to stay. That is to a great extent a powerful instrument for the traditional institutions. We are not depending on others. That's why the whole process is with the involvement of the traditional institutions, and this particular law has empowered the traditional institutions to be actively involved in this whole process of dealing with the challenges of the influx that we have witnessed in the preceding decades, and it will act as a deterrence, because there are many ways of creating that deterrence within the act. While we implement the act, there is a need to have a better discussion. But the government of the day, what did they try? They tried to amend the act without doing the due diligence. Could they amend the act? Could they amend the act? They tried to amend the act, but they forgot that they have gone beyond the legislative jurisdiction of the state legislature. That's why it was sent back. So if as a state legislature, somebody as a legislator, we fail to understand our legislative jurisdiction, then we make a mockery about the whole empowerment that we are vested with. Lawmakers will know where your border, where your domain ends. So therefore, it's a question of, rather, again, it gives me reason to question them whether they wanted to somehow derail the whole mandate of this beautiful act, which can to a great extent address the concerns of issues of unchecked, unregulated entry of people and residing of people in our neighborhoods. It helps in many ways, but then it is not enough. It is not enough. That is true. But to a great extent, this is a powerful legal instrument for the people of the state to deal with the concerns of unregulated entry of our people and unregulated stay of people from outside in our neighborhoods. Now, if you are specifically talking about MRSSA, Meghalaya Resident Safety and Security Act, 2016. Now, you go clause by clause, section by section. Then you will see the intent of the act is to protect the interests of our people, to address number of concerns pertaining to the protection of interests of our Jait country. You see, now I can see that there are lots of discussion, some kind of narrative on MRSSA, Meghalaya Resident Safety and Security Act. Some started referring to this act as an effective tool, effective act, effective provision of law to protect the interests of our people, and also to protect our interests from the perspective of the need to maintain the current demography of the state. Those are based on the how people have read the law and how they have understood the intent of the law and efficacy, applicability, effectivity of the law in from all perspectives. Now you have to look at the law comprehensively, not in isolation, pertaining to each and every section, but each and every section, how you again aggregate them and then have its effective collective impact in as far as its application is concerned. Now I can see that some people have expressed as to whether this law can deal with influx because it doesn't mention influx. I think these things need to be discussed properly to really make everyone understand the actual intent, efficacy, applicability, and effectivity of this act in as far as these concerns are concerned. Now, influx. What is influx? What is influx? Now, you also know fundamental rights. So, you also know the empowerment of every state legislature by the mandate of the Constitution in as far as making of law is concerned, as far as enactment of law is concerned. Now, influx relates to movement of people from state to state, entering into another state and residing in that state. It is not up to the state legislature to look at the mandate of the Constitution beyond what is within the legislative jurisdiction as per the mandate of the Constitution. Now, therefore, certain things have to be left to Parliament because it is not within the legislative domain of the state legislature. Therefore, when you are, as a legislator, making an act, it is a tightrope walking when it comes to these issues. Therefore, I have on number of occasions referred to the kind of tightrope walking that we had to do at the time of scripting this whole act. I, being the author of this act, I know how tightrope walking is so difficult. Because at one point, you are to, as a legislator, address those concerns, and at another angle, you have to understand that you cannot overstep. You cannot somehow go beyond your legislative jurisdiction as a state legislature. So it has been a difficult task, but then this was again made possible because there was a collective engagement, you see. All these friends representing different civil society organizations, articulating the will of the people and the desire of the people, the sentiments of the people, concerns of the people, apprehensions of the people. So we had an opportunity to really have an exhaustive discussion. Therefore, when we enacted the law, we ensured that this will be a law where you have so much of power vested upon various authorities, including the traditional bodies. Now, if you empower the traditional bodies, the Rangbas Nongs, the Nokmas, which we have done so effectively by the provision of this act, to a great extent, we can deal with the issue of influx. Now, how you look at influx is a matter of your interpretation. But now, I reside in Ngam Hills. Let me give you the example of my neighborhood, my locality in Shillong city itself. The overall power vested upon the Rangbas Nong itself is capable of deciding who should stay and who should not stay in our locality. Are we challenging it? We cannot challenge. We don't challenge. We don't want to challenge. So, if effectivity can be demonstrated for the purpose of example, for the purpose of, I'm just referring to one locality because I stay there. I think some of you may be from that locality. So, similarly, other localities also have similar structure. So, this structure is being administered by the traditional bodies, the traditional institutions who have been legally empowered by this act. Because was there not a court judgment? Them implement as it is now, and that whatever provisions of the law has been factored in the mandate of this law, if they are effectively utilized and implemented by delegating the responsibilities towards all concerned as per the mandate of the law, as I have said, it has got good enough of teeth. But if you go beyond the legislative jurisdiction in the name of trying to give more teeth, then you will hit a stone wall. That is what we should know, and that is what we should avoid. Because earlier also, when they tried to amend the act, I have cautioned that don't go beyond your legislative domain. Don't go beyond the legislative jurisdiction, lest you hit the wall. And as I have cautioned, they hit the wall and they delayed the implementation of this whole mandate of the law. And now you see that facilitation center not functional anymore. You have all the entry-exit points identified. I am telling you that these particular entry and exit points which are mandated as per the law is not challengeable by any court of law, nor can it have any judicial intervention, because it is well within the mandate of the constitution in as far as the state legislature jurisdiction of making or enacting a law is concerned. Therefore, the act is still there. Otherwise, you have seen people have challenged the constitutional Bible, whether it can withstand the scrutiny of the judiciary. It has been already tested. It has been tested. So therefore, doesn't it have this provision, entry-exit point? Doesn't it have? It has. How you implement this is what is crucial and important. There is where the sincerity comes. There is where they are not sincere to deal with the issue of influx. They want all the people from outside to come and grab all the business here. I am sorry, but I am concerned for the future of our people. They want our medical college to be taken by somebody. They want all the business to be taken by somebody. They want all the land to be grabbed by somebody from outside. That is the intent of this government. That's why they don't want this act to be implemented. Otherwise, there is an entry-exit. Is it not there in this particular law? It is there. Has it not withstood the judicial scrutiny by the court? It has withstood. Therefore, it's a powerful instrument to the extent possible, deal with this whole concern of influx and unregulated inflow of people from outside.
Wat penleno yakni kakabu ki sopti etho ki babha bat shongdor nadu sao po hajar hadu hnriu po hajar tingka menta phila banyo hagador lai po hajar tingka ya ki sopti etho ba shongdor hinyo po hajar chaneng phinyo tang san po hajar tingka tang kata kawei ki sopti kadai kawei ki design tang naka binta jongpi wan jit nok loi na molai moro bat namot pran pho no menta hau khandai sao lai hnriu san pra hinyo lai pra